This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. Melinda Gates has broken her silence over the horrific allegations coming out of the Epstein files. Millions of pages of files have been released by the DOJ and plenty of powerful people have been named. One of them being Bill Gates, Microsoft founder and vaccine guru. In the newly released documents, being emails Epstein sent to himself in 2013, Epstein appears to be accusing Bill Gates of being with Russian girls, contracting an STD, and was also writing emails about how to secretly drug his ex-wife with medication so he could get away with it. Bill Gates denies all of this, but his ex-wife, Melinda Gates, has broken her silence and she wants answers about the allegations. This is what she had to say in a podcast with NPR.
Emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, you know, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad.
Wow. Melinda Gates goes on to say that this reminds her of a very painful time in her marriage, that no girl should have ever been put in the situation that they were put in by Epstein and whatever else may have been going on with all of the people around him. And she wants those people, including her ex-husband, the saviour of health, to start answering questions and ultimately for there to be justice for the alleged victims in all of this, because this is beyond heartbreaking. Although millions of documents have been made public recently, these are only half of the files. Millions of documents are still being hidden. And the world deserves to know the truth about what happened. And we will be discussing this more with our panel coming up. We'll also get the very latest on the escalating tensions with Iran as the US shoots down an Iranian drone. Josh Hammer and Joe Siracusa will be joining us for that. Plus, Charlie Kirk's suspected killer returns to court. We'll be crossing to Washington, D.C., where we'll be joined by CJ Pearson, and also the royal family is well and truly in damage control as disgraced former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor moves out of Royal Lodge. We'll be getting all the details from London with Andrew Eborn. Look, every country has its healthcare problems, but America's Medicare system is on another level. Millions of seniors end up on the wrong plan every year. They either overpay, lose access to their doctors, or both, not because they did anything wrong, but because the system is designed to confuse them. And it gets worse. A lot of Medicare advisors are really just salespeople pushing whichever plan pays them the biggest commission. That's why I want to tell all of my American Power Hour viewers about Chapter. Chapter doesn't work for big insurance or the government. They're independent. In fact, they are the only advisor that compares every Medicare plan nationwide to find one that actually fits your needs. On average, that saves people about $1,100 a year. Just have a read of the testimonials. One woman, Jill, said that Chapter showed her better options that didn't even appear on the Medicare.gov website. That is how broken the system is and just how valuable it is to have someone truly on your side. So if you're looking for Medicare guidance, don't go it alone. Call the number below to speak with Chapter and get clear, unbiased guidance on your Medicare options. Joining us now is our panel, political analyst Joe Siracusa and senior editor at large of Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Thank you both for joining us. Let's start with Iran. Tensions between the US and Iran are escalating. Overnight, the US shot down an Iranian drone targeting the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. Iranian officials are now warning that they might pull out of negotiations with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner that had been scheduled to take place in Turkey on Friday. Joe Siracusa, can I get your analysis of what is happening at the moment and the direction that this is going?
Well, good morning, and I guess it's good evening, Josh, where you are in South Florida. Look, we have been at war with Iran since 1979, okay? And we've been going at it, and we've threatened them, and we're using today what they call, Tom Schelling called compellence diplomacy, later refined to coercive diplomacy, where we're trying to get them to do what we want them to do, and that is stop killing their own people, stop enriching uranium, and that kind of thing. And of course, they're going to hit back. Now, look, Iran is sort of a paper tiger in one way. I mean, I don't think they can resist combined American and Israeli airplanes and stuff like that. But it's as big as the size of Europe, almost twice the size of Texas. It's got 92 million people. And I know in my long career of observing and writing books and watching, Trump's my 14th president, you can't really win any of these wars. I mean, you can't go to war unless you have foot soldiers. I mean, you actually have to go in. That's what prevented George H.W. Bush the first time going in Iraq. He said he didn't want to direct traffic in downtown Baghdad. And so, we're trying to get them to do the right thing. And of course, Trump has promised them a little bit of help, the dissidents a little bit of help. And look, we all know the bravery of the Persians. The Persians didn't fall out of the trees yesterday. These people have thousands of years of history and pride and all the rest of it. And I'm sure there are many people there who are disgusted with the mullahs, the economy, and the rest of it. But if we start invading a place and putting foreign boots on foreign soils, we're going to create a few more enemies here than we want, because people get very testy about their land.
And Josh, do you agree with that? I know Trump has repeatedly warned that Iran risks being attacked if it doesn't do a deal to give up its nuclear program. But at the moment, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, so I broadly agree with what we just heard from Joe. Look, my own personal style of foreign policy is I'm not a huge fan of, let's call it, red line foreign policy. My own personal style and my preference would be that you kind of follow Teddy Roosevelt back in the day insofar as you speak softly and carry a big stick. Alexander Hamilton wrote in the Federalist number 70, one of our great essays on behalf of the Constitution's ratification back in the 1780s. Alexander Hamilton famously wrote that in the executive, in the single man executive, there is secrecy and dispatch. So that's kind of more our style, is more secrecy, dispatch, more deliberations, and ultimately coming to a conclusion, as opposed to this red line stuff. But Donald Trump did draw a red line, Gabriella, to your point, and he was very, very clear about this. He put on Truth Social about a week into the protest there in the first week of January. He said, look, if the regime starts massacring its own people, then we are going to take action. And then about 2 weeks later, he said that the Iranian people, go ahead and take the streets, go ahead and try to retake your institutions. Help is on the way. This is about as clear a red line as you can possibly get. And this red line has not merely been crossed. It has been utterly trampled over. It has been utterly eviscerated. We don't even know the exact number of Iranians who have been slaughtered. It's virtually impossible to say. Right now, I think a conservative estimate, would be somewhere between 25 and 40,000. I'm seeing some numbers potentially as high as 80 to 100,000. We just don't know. But it's a shockingly high number. It's one of the worst massacres of regime on its own people in our entire lifetime. And again, to me, at this point, the repercussions of not doing something are likely going to be even worse than whatever the repercussions would be of actually doing something there. It's not just that Donald Trump has made this red line threat, Gabriella. He has taken his armada and he has taken it to the Middle East. This whole infrastructure is there. I think backing down would be really catastrophic at this point.
All those people killed, and not one celebrity mentioned Iran at the Grammys. Let's talk about the newly released Epstein files. We know that former US President Bill Clinton and his wife, former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, have now caved, agreeing to testify in the congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. This comes days before the Republican-led US House of Reps was expected to vote to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt over their resistance of legal summonses. Now, several pictures of Bill Clinton appeared in the files released by the DOJ. Of course, we have to say Bill Clinton has denied any wrongdoing. Joe, can I get your thoughts around this? I think there needs to be more than a congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, but what do you make of this development?
I mean, it's very interesting. Look, Bill Clinton is a sleazebag. He's been sleazy, when he was governor of Arkansas and then president, and everybody heard rumors, and then he got caught and all the rest of it. I mean, he brought the office of the presidency into disrepute. I don't think there's any more mileage in embarrassing this guy. I mean, when he's being questioned under a subpoena and all the rest of it, he's got to tell the truth or his version of the truth. I mean, he's trying to avoid the contempt charge. And Hillary, I think her time is come and gone. That is, there's no more political mileage in getting embarrassing her. She's already had kind of an embarrassing end to her career anyway. But what bothers me about the Epstein thing is what looks like normalcy. It's got all these captains of industry and politicians and royalty hanging out with Epstein, and some lawyers who should have known better, as a matter of fact. And he's starting to give the impression that what he's doing is all right. Well, it's not all right. I mean, I was very suspicious when he got off the hook the first time, and the prosecutor who let him off the hook didn't really have a very good explanation, as a matter of fact. And so, there's a lot of things about Epstein that we're going to find out. Now, we got 3.5 million pieces of information. There are 2.5 million pieces to go. I'm amazed there's so many millions of pieces on this guy. And I don't think no one's going to find a smoking gun on President Trump. There's smoke, all right, but he knew the guy and he knew everybody who knew everybody else. But the Epstein thing is going to be investigated further because the American people, and these are good Republicans and good Democrats, who want to take this thing a little bit further. But I'll tell you, one thing that bothers me about this is that in his whole career, we have not heard a single story, email or anecdote about anybody who fronted Epstein's behavior and just punched him in the face. I grew up with a nice family on the south side of Chicago. I had a very polite Catholic father, a very polite Jewish mother, and that kind of behavior would never have been tolerated. Somebody would have punched someone in the face. The idea that no captain of industry stood up to this guy strikes me as devastating. The young lady who committed suicide in Australia, who wrote her memoirs, she said at the end she got very discouraged about anything coming out of the Epstein files because she said she realized after a while that everybody at the upper levels of American society regarded this behavior as normal. Well, there's nothing normal about what they were doing. And God knows what else he was doing besides corrupting these people. He's probably setting up people for blackmail, and he was wheeling and dealing. I mean, there's a lot of things there that people will be looking at hundreds of years after this conversation about how American society worked. But look, the whole thing stinks, and I think a lot more people are going to be caught up in this. And yes, there should be a full investigation. The American people will want to take this one to the end.
Yeah, we deserve the truth 100%, and there are still so many questions. Josh, can I get your assessment?
Yeah, look, I think everyone knows at this point that Bill Clinton was a heck of a lot closer to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump was. For what's worth, Donald Trump actually kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. Jeffrey Epstein was actually a member of Mar-a-Lago, and as soon as Donald Trump actually learned of these deeply sordid deeds that Jeffrey Epstein was affiliated with, Trump actually kicked him out and took away his membership card. And frankly, Gabrielle, one of my working theories is that this is actually the reason that Jeffrey Epstein became something of an anti-Trump provocateur in his later years. We actually saw these text exchanges. He was texting the non-voting representative from the U.S. Virgin Islands during that Michael Cohen hearing in Congress back in 2019 there. He really had this deep-rooted anti-Trump animus, all these texts and emails with Michael Wolff as well. My working theory of the case is that Jeffrey Epstein was the kind of guy who basically knew everyone, that he was palling around, hobnobbing with the rich and famous. Donald Trump was one of the only people who, to Joe's point, kind of had anything in him to kind of stand up and say, no, I'm actually not going to be associated with this there. So that's my theory as to why Epstein was so anti-Trump, especially in his later years. Now, is anything going to happen from Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying? Probably not. They're probably going to take the Fifth Amendment over and over and over again there. I could actually potentially see a way in which Democrats try to somehow make this actually redound to their interest. Maybe they try to ask questions, Bill Clinton, tell us about the GDP growth when you were president, try to kind of play up with the notion that the Democrats are very good at handling the economy there, this whole information operation about how Trump is overseeing an affordability crisis, which he's not. It's basically a fabrication of the media. Anyway, I'm kind of just spitballing here, but I could kind of see a way in which Democrats could try to get some of their own applause lines for the cameras. Gabrielle, personally, if I'm just being very candid and blunt here, I am somewhat frustrated with the Epstein story at this point. Not that I don't care about the truth. I care a lot about the truth. Rather, just putting on my legal cap as a lawyer who clerked on a federal appeals judge, and I've seen God knows many criminal indictments and whatnot in my life here. I know that the statute of limitations for the overwhelming majority of the underlying crimes that were committed here have all but assuredly passed. So while we all want justice, just putting on my legal cap here, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I do not see some sort of meaningful legal justice happening. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there's some statute that has not expired and that there's some kind of bigwig who can be carted off to prison, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 or a million, because this is really, really, really dark and nasty stuff there. But if I'm just being sober and I try to call it like I see it there, I don't necessarily see this ending with a huge amount of legal justice. Rather, I think the best that we can probably realistically hope for is political justice for those who have been involved in these sordid deeds.
Melinda Gates has broken her silence over some of the horrific allegations coming out of the files. In the newly released documents, there are allegations that Bill Gates was with Russian girls, he contracted STDs, and then was allegedly writing emails about how to secretly drug his ex-wife with medication so he could get away with it. Of course, Bill Gates denies this, but his ex-wife, Melinda Gates, has broken her silence. She says she wants answers about the allegations. This is what she had to say in a podcast with NPR.
Emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. Joe,
can I get your reaction?
Oh, look, my apologies to the lady. It's really more information than we need to know. I mean, it's a very embarrassing type of revelation. It just reminds me of how stupid Bill Gates is. I mean, to risk his reputation and his married life over going to Neverland or whatever that place was. I mean, it's just crazy. Paul Samuelson, a great economist, his mother was a real hellraiser, and she said to a very rich guy one day, who said to her first, he said to her, if you're so smart, how come you're not rich? And she said, well, if you're so rich, how come you're so stupid? And when I see these people, these captains of industry, pulling this kind of stuff and admitting to these kinds of things, I mean, I just wonder what the hell's going on in our minds when we put this guy and we elevate this guy. He gives a lot of money away. He's done a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, he's just kind of creepy.
I think that's an interesting point, Josh. And I was speaking to someone yesterday about the former Prince, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. And I think what shocks so many people is how stupid they are, that they've been okay with being photographed in these compromising positions. And Bill Gates, although he denies these emails suggest that he was planning on giving his wife medication secretly after getting an STD.
Well, I mean, this is why the Epstein saga has so many people who are asking questions as to what the heck was going on here, right? I mean, because how could so many people be so stupid? How could nobody blow the whistle for so long when it came to the horrific underage, sex trafficking rings and all the various other terrible things that were happening at Epstein Island. I mean, there's a million questions going on here. How the heck did Jeffrey Epstein get his money? How the heck did he get the Rolodex that he got there? How was he hobnobbing with heads of states? How was he? I mean, the guy knew everyone. He knew absolutely everyone there. So, I mean, it's kind of the perfect fodder for conspiracy theorists, right? I mean, you have basically everything imaginable. You have the heads of state, you have wealth, you have an island in the Caribbean, you have girls, you have this. I mean, you have everything imaginable that could kind of make the mind real. And here we are, and it's been roughly 2 decades, give or take, since a lot of this underlying conduct happened. And we really still don't have a whole lot of the answers there. And we've now seen millions and millions of emails, millions and millions of documents. The Trump administration, to their credit, they did not initially handle this the absolute best they could. I think that'd be a very polite way of saying it. Last summer was not their finest hour. I've said that over and over and over again. But they are now playing by the rules. Congress passed a statute force in their hand. And I think that people kind of deserve to know as much as they possibly can there. But again, Gabrielle, if I'm just being very candid here, and I know that there are some folks on my side of the aisle who don't necessarily agree with this point, I personally am more focused on kind of the day-to-day issues that are affecting Americans in the here and present. I'm more focused personally on the cost of groceries, on the inflation price, on the southern border, on the ICE Border Patrol debate there. So I really hope that we can get some sort of resolution to this Epstein story, and more transparency, I think, will go a long way towards that. The Clinton testify, and hopefully, I think we'll try to heal a lot of wounds as well there. But ultimately, I really do hope that we can somehow find a way to move on to the issues that are really affecting Americans more tangibly on a day-to-day basis right now.
No, that's absolutely a fair point. I want to talk about what's happening overseas in Italy. Violent clashes have broken out during a large protest in Turin, Italy over the weekend as anarchists and leftists attacked police, prompting Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to strongly condemn the unrest and vow a firm response. She said on X that violence against police and threats to the public order would not be tolerated. Joe, can I get your response, your assessment of what's unfolded in Italy?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting development, but look, Italy's always handled these things pretty well. People forget that when we had terrorism in Italy, the Red Brigade, the Italians beat these guys up, and they didn't have a major a terrorist or anarchist type attack in Italy for many, many decades, as a matter of fact. The Italians know how to respond to this, and all my people came from Sicily, which I'm sure provided a lot of terror, a lot of anarchists in the mix 150 years ago. But look, it just shows you that in Italy, which is run pretty well, by the way, by regions, federal government's never impressed me very much, is that there are some elements out of control. And we've seen this behavior skip oceans. In the 60s, we had 25 American cities burning, and now we're seeing cities or this kind of behavior elsewhere. And I hope it doesn't pick up on the United States, because we don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, Josh, it's interesting. We're looking at the vision now. It's pretty extraordinary. We'll just read you more of what Giorgia Meloni had to say. She said, "This morning I went to the hospital in Turin to bring on behalf of Italy my solidarity to 2 of the officers who were injured in yesterday's clashes," adding, "Against them hammers, Molotov cocktails, nail-filled paper bombs and stones launched with catapults, blunt objects of every kind to prevent police from communicating." I mean, can I get your take?
Well, Gabrielle, putting on my cap as American, I guess my first take is it's somewhat reassuring, albeit in a bizarre sense, I guess somewhat reassuring to know that we're not the only country that deals with these kind of hooligans and malcontents. I mean, every so often it's nice to be reminded that the Antifa Black Lives Matter style anarchy that has really taken America by the vice grip for the past, better part of the past decade. Sometimes I feel like it's a uniquely American phenomenon, and videos like this kind of just remind us that the sentiment really is throughout the world, and especially throughout the world where there are right-of-center leaders in charge. George Meloni is the right-of-center leader in one. And I mean, not that Italy is a U.S. or China superpower, but they are part of the G7. Italy is historically one of the more powerful nations in Europe, at least as far as kind of the after Germany nations in Europe go. It's definitely kind of a second-tier power, if nothing else, on the world stage there. And she's pretty outspoken when it comes to a lot of major right center issues there. She has been pretty outspoken when it comes to the migration crisis, when it comes to the fact that Italy cannot just be kind of a dumping ground of a lot of third world, especially Islamic world's refugees there. She's taken a lot of kind of culturally edgy stances there. And this is how the anarchists, this is how the leftists react to this, right? Is they simply cannot abide people who are going to have a different opinion there. They're not going to abide folks who are going to try to enforce immigration laws there, who are going to try to take an XYZ approach when it comes to the economy that they don't agree with there. There's really just no room for tolerance or civil disagreement when it comes to many folks on the left these days. There, I hope that order is restored because Italy, again, it has been something of a success. I will note that in our own hemisphere here, in the Western Hemisphere, we actually just had another election of a victorious right-winger in Costa Rica, actually, of all countries there, an inspiring 39-year-old free market candidate, pro-life candidate actually as well. So Costa Rica seemingly is now going the way of El Salvador in that particular part of the world, which is a potentially very interesting development. Javier Milei, of course, is kicking butt in Argentina. So we are seeing the rise of more of these right-of-center leaders in the mold of a Donald Trump, in the mold of a Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, Viktor Orban in Hungary, and now George Meloni in Italy as well there. But unfortunately, with strong conservative leadership, Gabrielle, definitely comes a price as well.
Senior editor at Large Newsweek, Josh Hammer, and political analyst, Professor Joe Siracusa. Thank you both so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Let's cross to the US now. Joining us is CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. CJ, it's great to see you. Let's start with Tyler Robinson. Charlie Kirk's alleged shooter, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. He's back in court. His legal team has been arguing that the prosecutor's office has a conflict of interest and should be removed from the case because one of the prosecutor's 18-year-old child was at Utah Valley University when Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. Also, Erica Kirk, she's been pushing for meaningful media access in this trial. So there's full transparency because, as we've been seeing for some time now, there are plenty of conspiracy theories getting plenty of traction, CJ.
You know, you're exactly right. It's incredible to see Erica Kirk continuing to be as strong as she is as she navigates this process. And again, calling for transparency, which I think is probably making a lot of those conspiracy theorists very much upset because it absolutely blows up their entire narrative. You know, it's interesting to see the legal counsel of Tyler Robinson again try to delay this case. That was another motion that Erica Kirk had filed asking for a speedy trial to be conducted. Stop the delays, stop the grandstanding. Let's get justice for Charlie Kirk. Nothing's going to stand in the way of that. Erica's going to keep fighting, and I'm glad that she is.
Oh, absolutely. One woman who thought it was hilarious to watch a protester celebrate Charlie Kirk's death is the charming Jennifer Welch. And she's now using her podcast, her platform, to push deranged conspiracy theories about the president. Here is Jennifer Welch on her podcast, I've Had It, insisting that Trump's assassination attempt back in Butler was all staged.
Obviously, a lot of people are late to the party on this. A lot of people during the last presidential campaign got intoxicated by Trump's campaign. They got intoxicated by the fight photo, which I'm now going to go on the permanent record. I think he totally staged the assassination. I've watched it. I think he staged it. They lowered the flag. They let the press go in. I think he staged the whole thing. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm going blue or not. I don't care.
CJ, can I get your reaction to this?
That woman is unwell. Like, I mean, when I think about the name of her show, I've Had It. I don't know if she's talking about she's had Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of Cab, and maybe some Don Julio tequila right before recording, because every single time she opens her mouth, she wants to bring up intoxication. I think she's intoxicated every single time she speaks and she talks. The fact that this is a woman who is allowed to go on CNN almost every other night to spar with Scott Jennings, and we're supposed to treat her as a legitimate intellectual or legitimate political commentator as she spreads conspiracy theories about the attempted assassination of the leader of the free world. Give me a break. If a Republican did the same thing about any Democrat who's a victim of brazen political violence, they would be canceled. Their career would be over. We would not treat them as a legitimate political personality and or voice. When will we hold this woman to that same standard? I'm waiting on that.
You are exactly right, CJ. I couldn't have said it better myself. I have to get your thoughts on the Grammys. Singer Billie Eilish is right now being savagely mocked and labelled a hypocrite for declaring that no one is illegal on stolen land. And of course, she said, F ICE. That was what was on trend at the Grammys. Now, she made those comments while she owns a massive gated Hollywood mansion. And now the Daily Mail is reporting that the Native American tribe, the Tongva tribe, that owns land under Billie Eilish's multi-million-dollar LA mansion, said that celebrities should be explicitly referencing the tribes if they want to use them to virtue signal. CJ, do you have a message to Billie Eilish, or what did you make of this?
You just can't make this stuff up. If she really feels as if she's living on stolen land, then well, give it back, Billie. No one's stopping you. Give it to any illegal you want to. Give it to any Native American tribe you wish to. No one is stopping you, but I guarantee you she won't. If she wants to house, I assume the mansion's quite spacious, put 100 illegals in there. What is stopping her from doing so? It's the fact that she actually doesn't give a damn about any of these people. She wants to go on stage and use her white guilt to make herself feel as if she's doing something. She thinks she's probably the reincarnation of Martin Luther King Jr. when she looks in the window. None of those things are true. Put your money where your mouth is, Billie, which is apparently in the hands of illegal aliens. But mine won't be going there, so maybe you can pick up the slack for me.
Yeah, she's getting absolutely slammed for this. So are other celebrities all wearing their ICE out pins. That was the message that was on trend. Last year it was all free Palestine. This year it's all F ICE. Interesting, just talking about immigration, why we have immigration enforcement. It's not only to make America safer, of course it's doing that, but it's also to make America more affordable, CJ.
No, you're exactly right. When you have illegal aliens who are absolutely invading our country, taking up things like housing, it's driving up the cost of housing for American citizens in this country. We have an affordability crisis in many places in this country. Ironically enough, it's disproportionately in blue states and blue cities where most of these illegals go to for refuge because they know that these cities will not cooperate with ICE or the federal government that is eagerly trying to enforce immigration laws. That's actually driving citizens out of these cities because of how unaffordable it's become, because of their soft on crime and soft on immigration policies. And so you're exactly right. This isn't just about making America safe again. It's about making America more affordable again. President Trump gets it. This White House gets it. It's exactly why they will not stop, regardless of how much, folks like the mayor of Minneapolis or the governor of California and Gavin Newsom try to stand in their way.
CJ, I have to ask you about the Melania documentary. Much to the shock of Hollywood, First Lady Melania Trump's documentary has smashed its box office sales. Estimates during the opening weekend, the movie earned $7 million in ticket sales across the US and Canada, making it the best performing theatrical release for a documentary outside of concert films since 2012. I know you've seen it and I know it's being received very well. What can you tell us?
It was absolutely incredible. I had the opportunity to actually attend the premiere for the film here in Washington, D.C., and it was a crowd favorite. I'll tell you that. But also, too, it beats the experts' projections. We got to stop listening to these experts because they seemingly have not yet learned to stop betting against the Trumps. Every single time they are going to defy your expectations, defy your predictions, and Melania does that in this movie with absolute grace and class that we know her to be. This is the most iconic first lady to live in the White House since Jackie Kennedy, and they thought this was going to be a flop. They must have not been paying attention.
CJ Pearson, it is wonderful to speak with you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you, my friend.
Time now for our royal update with Andrew Eborn, UK barrister and broadcaster and president of Octopus TV. Andrew, wonderful to see you.
Always a joy to join you, Gabriella.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has reportedly moved out of his home in Windsor, the Royal Lodge. The disgraced former prince is now living in a temporary property, and this, of course, comes as pressure really mounts for him to give evidence in the United States over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Bring us the latest.
Well, he was seen on Monday on a horse around the grounds of Windsor Castle, and a lot of people felt as though it's sort of two fingers up to the establishment as more and more of these revelations came out. It's now been reported that he's moved out of this wonderful mansion he used to live in. People will recall that last year we talked about it being a peppercorn rent, which meant a sort of nominal sum. That is huge, 30 plus room mansion. He's now been moved to effectively a shoebox, is what he's called it. So it's a total downgrade. And whilst this shoebox is being renovated, and we understand that they've got rat infested and so on and so forth, so the various Rentokil and various other firms have been brought in to get rid of the vermin before Andrew comes in. What's happened is that he's moved into a very small property on the Sandringham estate, pending that. But yet it does seem as though he has now left Windsor, and the royal family is desperate to bury him somewhere in amidst those sort of grounds.
Now, Prince Edward is the first royal to comment since the latest release of these Epstein files. What has he had to say?
Which is interesting because he is indeed the first royal to comment on the latest Epstein files. It's very reminiscent of the statement from Buckingham Palace. You might recall on the 30th of October 2025, when His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. And what they emphasise at the very end, which is the important thing, their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So what's happened to Edward, I felt they dealt with it in a very dignified way. He was speaking at the World Government Summit in Dubai on Tuesday. The Duke of Edinburgh, and that's his full title, 61, he was questioned about the latest Department of Justice release of the files, over 3 million documents, you will recall. And what he said, well, look, with the best will in the world, I'm not sure this is what the audience probably the least bit interested in that. No, probably not the least bit interested in that. They all came here to listen to education, solving the future. But no, I think it's all really important always to remember the victims. And who are the victims in all this? A lot of victims in this. So slightly nebulous terms, but he's again emphasising, as their Majesties did, that we should focus on the victims. Certainly some people who claim to be victims are Beatrice and Eugenie in all of this, which we'll speak about a little bit later.
Yes, I want to get your thoughts on what Beatrice and Eugenie have potentially had to say. Of course, what we're feeling for them at the moment. Before we do, though, lawyers for a second woman who alleges that she was sent to the UK by Jeffrey Epstein have urged King Charles's lawyers to issue a real apology. This is following allegations that this woman spent the night with Andrew at Royal Lodge in 2010 and had been given a tour of Buckingham Palace.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? And we've been talking about this previously as well, is that the amount of grace and favours and sort of benefits that Andrew used to give to Epstein and the various people trafficked by Epstein, including tours of Buckingham Palace and so on and so forth. And that's what some of these 3 million documents have revealed, is the extent of that access. But yes, indeed, a second woman, as predicted, and there will be more revelations, I can guarantee, as people continue to comb through those 3 million documents. But a second woman has come forward. She says that she was sent to the UK by Jeffrey Epstein for a sexual encounter with the then Prince Andrew. And again, this time they put the pressure on the King Charles lawyer, to issue a real apology. And no doubt that real apology, they would want to come with some sort of financial settlement. And the reality of this is that, and people have made this point, is that if people were coming in and out of Buckingham Palace, then the security, other people would know. It's not that easy for people to get into. There are protocols to be looked at. And so questions need to be answered. Who knew what, when? That needs to be looked at. But certainly this is, lawyers have come out representing yet another person claiming to have been trafficked. They were apparently in their 20s at the time. So we should also point out that Andrew continues to deny any wrongdoing.
Let's also talk about Fergie. Sarah Ferguson's charity, Sarah's Trust, has announced that it will close for the foreseeable future. This comes just days after new details emerged about her friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew?
Well, it is extraordinary. I mean, this is, and it's quite sad. We spoke about it last year, is that lots of the charities instantly distanced themselves from Fergie, as she's known, as more and more of these revelations came out about the extent of her relationship. Perhaps the most shocking thing of all, Gabriella, is the timing on this, because she denied any sort of contact with Epstein. And what happened is, after his conviction and imprisonment for his offences, she was still in contact. That's what the latest revelations show.
Shocking.
And it is completely shocking. And what's happened, so the Sarah's Trust, and this is the sad thing about it, because it was doing good work. It was established in 2020, and this is what they say. It's dedicated to supporting frontline grassroots work to address the humanitarian and environmental crisis, the hunger crisis, and issues perpetuating cycles of extreme poverty. They've realized they cannot continue. Sarah has been tainted in this way, and her association with Epstein is becoming more and more apparent, and lots of details, and humiliating details, not just for Sarah herself, but also obviously for her two children.
Well, let's talk about those two children. We're learning more about how Beatrice and Eugenie are feeling. And of course, it would be a shock to no one that they are feeling appalled and embarrassed.
Well, they're actually aghast, appalled, and embarrassed about what's emerged. Now, it's always embarrassing when your parents do terrible things, but in the circumstances, it is even worse. And it's not just what's being revealed about the extent of Andrew's relationship, and also those terrible pictures which are shown with Andrew on all fours next to a female on the ground, and various other things. The context of that, we're not entirely sure, but clearly it's not an image that you'd want published everywhere. But also you've got the plunged further humiliation about embarrassing details about Sarah herself. And in one of her ones, she talks about, the brother I've always wished for. She was praising him and that sort of side, having denied any sort of contact. She was basically, and also in complete humiliation for Eugenie. She says she's waiting for her youngest daughter to return from a shagging weekend. Now, how humiliating is that? Not just your parents talking about that sort of side, but also in the context of the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So actually, my thoughts go out to Princess Beatrice and Eugenie. They've grown up with this. And if anybody was hoping they would escape any further scrutiny, they were sadly wrong. And that scrutiny will continue, I predict, for some time to come.
Look, before we move on from the Epstein fallout, police in the UK announced a criminal investigation into Britain's former ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson. Following this release of more and more Epstein files, Metropolitan Police said that they've received a number of reports into alleged misconduct in public office, including a referral from the UK government. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, this is, again, a complete scandal. Peter Mandelson is now Peter Scandalson, is what I would say, is that the more and more of these revelations coming out. Again, there are some horrendous images being circulated, including him in his underpants with somebody else in Epstein's presence, and also his relationship with Epstein. He says he can't remember receiving a $75,000 finance from that sort of side. But the biggest problem about this, as you say, is the criminal investigation following the claims that he passed on market-sensitive information to Jeffrey Epstein. And Mandelson was a key figure in the government at that stage. It was the Cabinet Office have referred the matter to the police, and basically it's internal government information. It's really incredibly shocking. He was business secretary at the time in 2009. He's said, and it's all happened in the last few hours, it's been dominating the news over here in the UK. He's stepping down from the House of Lords, the Lord Speaker says. On Sunday, he reiterated his regret for ever having known Epstein and for continuing his association following Epstein's conviction. As I say, that's where the timing is key. When you sort of turn around, he'd already been convicted and Mandelson was still in contact. He has been approached for further comment. And he's basically said, look, he can't recall all of it. He wasn't sure if the photos may have been doctored or the documents doctored or whatever. But there is a process. Whilst he will not sit in the Lords, there is a process about removing his title. And that process is now going to be looked at. And there could well be a vote in the Commons here tomorrow as the government publish more information relating to Mandelson. And again, the question will be, because he was appointed to that incredibly important position as the UK's ambassador to the US, what was the process that went through? What was known when he had that appointment? And I always say, look, sunlight is the best disinfectant when you're looking at that sort of side. And certainly trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. And trust is at an all-time low in certain parts of the political parties at this moment. And this is only going to fuel that fire.
Let's move on from the Epstein files now and on to other royal news. Princess Catherine is reportedly earning her nickname as Sporty Spice Princess during a recent visit to the Wakefield Trinity Rugby Club. The Princess of Wales spoke about her own sporting history, noting that she played lots of netball in school.
Oh, she is. And listen, isn't it so refreshing to have positive news to talk about with the royal family? And Princess Catherine she's the epitome of dignity, the epitome of grace, and the epitome. She is the people's princess, as a phrase coined beforehand for Princess Diana. But also she shows this sporting prowess. Sporty Spice Princess is the nickname on the field, and also she's very, very good in the kitchen, apparently. And what happened, this was down in Wakefield Trinity Rugby Club. She spoke about her own sporting history. She knows she plays lots of netball, but skipped rugby and football. And what happened, she wasn't officially involved in rugby, but joins when family play together at home. And her youngest son, Prince Louis, he takes part in rugby tops session. It's a great way of doing it. It's a sort of non-contact sports where you grab a tag as opposed to tackling people. And obviously Prince George, he's becoming a pro. George, now, if we play at home, I do not want to get tackled by George, the princess shared. Well, he's getting a big lad, and we see more and more of him. But she's done all sorts of things, from scuba diving to getting involved with curling, you know, putting things on the ice and stuff like that. And she's very much one of the people. She's very relatable. She's adored by the public over here, as we discussed last time when we looked at the Royals polls.
Oh, she's adored absolutely everywhere. Not sure about Prince Harry, though, and we have to speak about him. He was recently in the UK, and he's likely to return for one special reason. What's that?
Well, this is all to do, and this is the good thing that Harry does, is he was over here very recently, and we talked about this last time, for the ongoing court case that he has about access to what he alleges is private information for generating stories. This particular one is he's basically coming back for the Invictus Games, the 1-year countdown. He founded the Invictus Games in 2014. It was the international contest, and again, this is a positive thing, and it's good to say that, for wounded, injured and sick armed force members and veterans and their families. So he's predicted to come over here in July in Birmingham. There will be a series of events heralding the 1-year countdown for the Invictus Games. And I always say, look, in amongst the other stuff, and we often in the media talk about the bad stuff about Harry and Meghan, this is one of the good things that he does. So praise where praise is due. He will be due over here. There will be the usual questions, Gabriella, about security arrangements and so on and so forth. Will Meghan come with him? Will the two grandchildren, which King Charles basically would be delighted to see, will they come? But all of that will depend on these security arrangements. You remember last year I spoke about he lost his court case about being able to force that and guarantee that every time. So it's been decided on a case-by-case basis. They will determine over the next few weeks, and there'll be further announcements, I'm sure, and we'll bring that to you right here on the brilliant Power Hour when we can.
Yes, you will. Now, sticking with Meghan Markle, apparently Netflix staff are helping themselves to free as ever products, including jam. Those are reports out of Page 6. But also, Meghan's launching a new product just in time for Valentine's Day. And Andrew Ebon, I know you're going to be trying them out for us.
Oh, well, I do, and I tried the jam. Well, as I say, it was spam jam or scam jam, because you couldn't call it jam because it didn't have the right amount of sugar and things like that in it. And I actually quite liked it. It was a bit bitter, like some of the comments that were made about the product. But they are eye-watering in terms of cost. What's happening about the excess product, if you like? Netflix starts to be helping themselves to these as-ever products in their streamer's Los Angeles office, and they're filled with all sorts of wares that what's happened. Apparently there are storage rooms full of this stuff, and some people are walking out with them with these wonderful flower petals and so on and so forth. And I was looking at the figures about how many were actually involved. I mean, thousands and thousands of these products. Apparently this were meant always as gifts and for promotional purposes, which is what happened. But I was looking at the website today, the As Ever, and we've got Valentine's Day. I know you're all saving up, and I will act surprised when my gifts arrive in the post. But what happens? I was looking at the As Ever products. Here we are. And they have something called the Valentine's Edit. I'll read it to you quickly. It's a limited edition Valentine's bundle, brings together some of our most beloved offerings alongside a brand new chocolate collaboration curated to be savoured slowly and shared generously. From morning tea to candlelight evenings, each piece is designed to turn everyday moments into something memorable. And for that, you get some chocolate bar collective, crafted exclusively for As Ever, and wrapped in botanical design made for gifting. You get paired with our strawberry and raspberry spreads, presented with keepsake packaging. We've looked at that as well. And also, you made to linger longer after the last spoonful, and you get a pour of hibiscus tea. Adds a floral, gentle, tart note, while flower sprinkles. You have to have those, don't you?
Of course.
Invite a playful finishing touch. We mustn't forget those flower sprinkles. Now, how much would you say for that wonderful Valentine's edit? How much would you pay for that, Gabriella?
How much is it? Am I going to be shocked?
Well, it's an eye-watering. You've got to love somebody a lot for this. It's an eye-watering $185
For chocolate?
For chocolate and
flower
other
sprinkles.
Stuff, and the tea and the bits and pieces. And, of course, those very, very important flower sprinkles. You must love somebody a lot to give them one of those packages.
You know, I love chocolate. I would spend a lot of money on chocolate. I'm not sure I would spend that amount for Meghan Markle's chocolate and flower sprinkles, but I know you're going to try it for us. You're going to report back and tell us if it was really worth it.
The sacrifices I make for you, Gabriella.
And we appreciate it so much. Andrew Aborn, lovely to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
A joy as always. See you next week.
That is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.